So last week on Saturday, there was actually a question and answer stream with the writers of the RWBY series, Carrie Shawcross and Miles Luna. And of course, there were questions asked about RWBY. So I wanted to make a video to highlight some of the things that they said regarding the RWBY series. Not every question that was answered was regarding RWBY. I'll leave a link down in the description below so you guys can go and check it out for yourself, but there are some pretty important questions that were answered directly about the RWBY series. First and foremost, I want to say nothing was hard confirmed for Volume 10. No release dates, no nothing like that. But we got about as close as I think we're gonna get. Because, well, everyone who is currently working on Volume 10 or has worked on RWBY or is contracted with Viz Media is under a non-disclosure agreement. They are not going to be able to make any announcements. It's going to have to come from Viz whenever Viz is ready to make any announcements. But Carrie did say a few important things regarding RWBY Volume 10. Most importantly is that if something wasn't happening, then there would be an announcement. So the fact that there isn't an announcement is just reconfirmation of what we already knew, is that Viz Media is working on different projects. Carrie continued on further, saying that Viz Media does want to work on Volume 10, and the most important takeaway, I think, for RWBY fans from this entire stream is that if Carrie or Miles were concerned or disappointed with where RWBY was at with Viz Media, then they would be saying something. And they aren't. So, without too much difficulty, we can read between the lines and say that they're not concerned and they're not disappointed with where RWBY is at, considering that both of these writers of the RWBY series want the RWBY series to continue. You know, it's heavily implied that that's the direction that we're heading. Again, nothing has been hard confirmed. We're going to have to wait for confirmation from Viz Media, but all signs seem to be pointing to Volume 10 is likely going to happen. Maybe a while, maybe there's a lot of things that they have to figure out behind the scenes, but we know that a lot of the voice actors for the RWBY series, as well as Carrie himself, the main writer for the RWBY series, they're all working with Viz Media. Viz Media acquired RWBY. Obviously, if you acquire a new intellectual property, you have some idea of what you want to do with it, or you have at least the intention of doing something with it, so, you know, 99% chance RWBY's moving forward. You can't say confirmation 100% until Viz Media says anything, but still, just want to reiterate those points. Now, as far as answering questions about the content of RWBY itself, for anything that might or might not happen in the future of the RWBY series, essentially, they just said, just watch the show and find out. They're not going to confirm or deny anything, which makes absolute sense, because why would you spoil the audience on something that is or is not going to happen? Even in previous interviews that the showrunners and the cast have had, anything that they talk about in future content, like, either they're just going to deny asking the question or they're going to deny the answer in and of itself because they're not going to spoil anything that's coming in the future. So that really does make sense. And then when it comes to the past content of RWBY and questions that were asked, you know, like what would they change if they could? What was the most difficult part for them to write? Which for Carrie, that was Cinder's backstory, just making sure everything fit properly. And, you know, the difficulties that came along with writing for the RWBY series. And this is what I really want to delve into with this video, because it is very important. I think that, you know, everyone who watches the RWBY series has this following understanding, that there were many difficulties behind the scenes. Apparently, according to Miles and Carrie, everything was a time crunch. This has been kind of obvious from just looking at the release schedule that the RWBY series tried to follow, releasing one volume every single year. For a small studio like Rooster Teeth to produce an animated show like that, they are constantly having to struggle to fit everything that they want to fit into a given volume, into a given season. And so they said that they're always looking for time to save, to shave off a few minutes from this scene, or maybe this isn't necessary and cut this entirely. And unfortunately, some things did have to be dropped or cut entirely, which, you know, is apparent when you're watching the RWBY series and certain things are set up and then there's never any payoff to it. One important thing that they did address, which is also something that I addressed during my reviews of Volume 8, is that Grim River that was coming from Monstra and leading into the city of Mantle. Jean, Yang, and Ren encountered this grim river and, they alerted the Aesops about it. They had to tell someone about it because this was a massive problem. And then all it amounted to was having the grim river shoot up into Atlas and then disable the hard light dust shields. So it did do something, but you didn't really need a massive grim river to do that. We had heard previously in the Volume 8 commentary that there was a plan for, like, a mini-boss of sorts. Unfortunately, it had to be cut for time, but we did get a little bit of insight on what that battle would have looked like. It was supposed to be, like, a giant tentacle-type thing that would wrap around Atlas, likely multiple tentacles that would wrap around Atlas and try to pull it down towards Mantle, just to sink the city in and of itself. And it would be the Aesops and the Happy Huntresses fighting together to try to stop it. It would involve the Dust Refinery, using, like, ice dust to freeze the tentacles, for example, and then shatter them. Things like that would have had to have been utilized. We would have got to see a really cool fight, seeing the Happy Huntresses and the Aesops working together. That would be amazing to see. Granted, they weren't exactly on the best terms in Volume 8, so there would be a lot of tension throughout that fight, not really wanting to work together, but both knowing that, well, this is absolutely for the greater good. They have to stop, Atlas from crashing into Mantle. Though Ironwood did later use Mantle as a bargaining chip and was going to blow it up anyways, that would have added more tension to that scene as well, after the Aesops have just fought to defend Mantle and save it from destruction. Now he's just willing to blow it away. That could have caused more tension. Things might have shifted even more for the Aesops and their perspective of Ironwood, given the direction that he decided to take things. As well as involving the Dust Refinery, seeing other uses for dust, and things like that. That would have been amazing to see. But given the production schedule, and given that they were in the middle of the pandemic, there were circumstances outside of their control that constrained what they could actually put into a volume. It unfortunately had to be cut. And that's the case with things in Volume 9. We saw that there were supposed to be 2 more episodes for Volume 9, and it had to be cut due to budget constraints, due to the pandemic, due to them only having so much time and resources available to work on these volumes. It was things outside of their own control, and also just the release schedule that they had tried to follow for the earlier volumes, whenever things had to be cut. Trying to release a volume every single year is a tight schedule, and especially with the story that they want to tell, there's a lot that they wish that they could have put into the series. As they said in this interview, they would change things in retrospect in every single episode that they produced. Add a little bit more time here, maybe this thing is a little bit less important, so spend a little bit less time on that. As they have been writing the series, they have been learning and growing as writers, as producers, as people who are working on a show like RWBY, a show that has grown to this caliber. When they first started out the RWBY series, Monty had this cool idea, and I believe it's been said in other interviews that in the beginning they were just making something that they thought would be cool for their friends. Other person at Rooster Teeth is just like, hey, do you want to voice this random character? Sure, come on in, let's have fun with it. And that's what the early volumes of RWBY were. But then it grew, it got larger, and they had to introduce an actual plot. Now, I'm sure that Monty, Miles, and Carrie had a lot of plot ideas in mind early on. I remember an interview that took place a while ago that they initially had thought that Atlas would be introduced in Volume 3, which, incredibly ambitious, but as they started writing, as they started developing the plot, as they started to animate, they learned. And as I've said with every review of a volume that has come out, every volume is better than the last. And that, I think, is true in a number of different ways. Not only with the story developing, but the animation getting better, the technology that they've been working on, the experiences that they're bringing to the table with different animators, with writers, with voice acting, etc. Everything is getting better over time. And as Carrie said in this interview, RWBY is special because it is a time capsule of learning experiences. At least that's what makes it special to him. And I think that is a very, very important takeaway from that Q&A. I think that is a very important perspective to have, because I see far too many people. I think it's just a very small minority of people who are very vocal online about the flaws in the RWBY series, and they dislike the RWBY series for those flaws. Which, you know, that's completely fair. You don't have to like something. No one is forcing you to watch the show. No one is forcing anyone to watch the show. But if you can see it for its flaws, but love it anyways, that, I think, is part of what makes RWBY special. There are a lot of flaws in the series. No one is denying that. No one, I think, is calling RWBY a perfect series. But it is a flawed series. It is a series that shows a lot of growth, a series that reflects the creators behind it, and I think that is that's very touching. I really like the RWBY series for the story that it's trying to tell, the cool fights, the characters, as well as the story behind the series creation. Everything that the RWBY series has gone through, and everything that it will go through in the future. I look forward to where the RWBY series will go. I look forward to the story that will be brought with it, and I hope everyone else does as well. One last thing, they also mentioned they did bring up RWBY Chibi in this Q&A as well. No confirmation, unfortunately, if RWBY Chibi will be continuing, because we definitely would love to see RWBY Chibi continue, but they did say that Salem will not be in RWBY Chibi. There's a reason they didn't add Salem to RWBY Chibi before, and likely that same reasoning will follow through into the future as well. Because they don't want their big bad of the RWBY series to be, you know, slipping on a banana peel or something in RWBY Chibi. They don't want to take away from her presence in the main storyline. Because if you do have the big evil bad guy, slipping on a banana peel, having, you know, doing maniacal evil plans, like Cinder, and then failing spectacularly, well, people might start to see her a little bit differently in the main storyline. So Salem will not be making an appearance in RWBY Chibi. But there's plenty of other characters that they can add. All of the Aesops, for example, the Happy Huntresses, Gira and Callie Belladonna. We could have Raven in RWBY Chibi. You know, there's so many other characters that they could add, and even without Salem, even if Tyrion's not added in, even if Hazel's not added in, Watts, I would hope, is added in, because he could give a lot of other speeches, like similar to the one that he gave to Cinder in Volume 8, that would just be beautiful to see in RWBY Chibi, but I'll save all of those ideas for another video. As I mentioned, a link to the full stream is in the description down below, so I encourage everyone to check it out if you can. It is over on Twitch, which is the reason I didn't find the stream initially, because it had been advertised that it was going to be on the Streamly YouTube channel, but due to technical difficulties, it had to be moved over to Carrie's Twitch channel, so the VOD might be deleted on Twitch eventually. So just keep that in mind. Again, another reason why I think it's important to make this video kind of recapping the important things that were discussed in the Q&A. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you guys did watch the full Q&A, is there anything that I missed that you would like to add to the discussion? What do you think of the questions that were answered in this Q&A? The importance of seeing a little bit of what it's like behind the scenes of the RWBY series. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and please keep it civil in the discussion. With that being said, though, if you guys want to see more videos regarding the RWBY series and different theories and ideas, then make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. I also stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so if you guys want to come over there, discuss RWBY or anything else, in fact, it's only because I stream and someone informed me on my stream that the live stream Q&A actually did happen, is because someone came to my Twitch channel and told me. So, if you want to tell me anything there, I encourage you all to join in. So, with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.